So, what is Nyx really? And what's really happens when it arrived on Earth many years ago that's led up to the creation of the world of Persona 3 as we know it? We are going to answer all of those questions and much more in this video. And if you think the game already told you everything, you are very wrong. Because the truth is much stranger than that. That said, there are many answers and angles that we can explore here. If we look at it from the mythological standpoint, Nyx is a goddess of the night from Greek. However, during the final battles, the protagonist is fighting the Nyx Call, which take the form of an Aigis. This quickly makes it clear to us that the Nyx in Persona 3 is not the same one as the demon from the other Persona's games. Furthermore, it is unclear and never officially stated, at least as far as I'm aware of, what this Aigis really is. There is a bunch of theories about what this Aigis really is, but the one I'm most foul of is the idea that it represents a cosmic or universe Aigis. This Aigis is believed to hatch into a being that gives birth to the universe as we know it. It sounds crazy, and it is, but you'll soon learn that this title is indeed very fitting for Nyx. That said, today instead of talking about theories, we will be focusing on official information, so you can rest assured that what we cover is exactly what the creator intended, and to do that, we'll be taking a look at the official book called the Persona 3 Club Book, which contains a lot of information that is not included in the games. What did Persona 3 Club Book say about Nyx? Apparently, Nyx is a colossal-sized alien known as a planet or star eaters. Unfortunately, the book did not share with us anything else about this race of aliens. However, they did share with us what happens when Nyx arrive on Earth and how it linked to the event of Persona 3. But trust me, it's going to link to way more things than just the event of Persona 3. In fact, it's going to explain to us how the life and reality that we know comes into existence, alluding to that cosmic Aigis title that I told you about earlier. Let me tell you about it. Long ago, like really long ago, Nyx in the dormant state was floating through space until one day it eventually reached Earth. Now, if you play Persona 3, you might have already heard that it crashed into Earth and its body and mind become separate, but there's one crucial problem with this story, and that is, how did the Earth even survive the impact of the colossal aliens colliding into it? The Persona 3 Club Book has the answer. It's explained that Earth didn't break apart because the material Nyx was made of is a different type of matters than the kind we know. In other words, since Nyx's bodies consist of some mysterious substance, it doesn't obey the same laws of physics we were taught in school. That said, the book also mentioned that the impact was still violent and immense. This makes sense because if it just has been a soft fist bump, it wouldn't explain how Nyx's body and mind were split upon the impact. Anyway, you'll likely remember from the game that Nyx's body became the moon, but how did that really happen? Well, upon the collision, the shock broke off of fragments of Earth, which then flew into the sky, and later together with Nyx's body, they formed the moon. This is why during the final confrontation, when Nyx's body is revealed, you can see it is surrounded by debris. But what happened next is even stranger. After the collision, Nyx's body became the moon, but its psyche, or perhaps its soul, separated from its body and began to roam the earth. It is explained that Nyx's soul manifests as a wave of death, possessing the ability to annihilate all life on the planet. This is the origin of the prophecy of the fall left behind by an ancient civilization that was later discovered by the Kirijo group. The prophecy states that shadows are the children of maternal beings, the goddess Nyx, who gifted the world with night and death. The latter would take the form of her emissary, the oppressor, who would serve as the herald of the fall of all life. With the information I've shared with you so far, we could fully understand the context of the prophecy. Let's start with the idea that Nyx gifted the world with the night. This clearly ties into the fact that Nyx created, or more accurately, became the moon. But do you know that without the moon, the night would be far darker? In fact, it would feel like pure darkness with only the stars visible in the sky. So it's thanks to Nyx becoming the moon that we have the night as we know it. Now, the connection between the night and the moon is pretty straightforward, but what about the part about death? Apart from the prophecy left behind by the ancient civilization, Ryoji also mentions that Nyx bestowed death upon the world.
Nyx is the mother of shadows. In ancient times, she bestowed death upon this world.
So, what does this really mean? There are several things associated with death in the game, the most obvious being Nyx herself and her various manifestations. Another example could also be the Reaper, but the truth behind this is much weirder than it seems. What Ryoji is actually saying is that Nyx introduced the very concept of death to the world.
Are you stupid or something?
Okay, wait, before you roll your eyes and turn off the video, just hear me out. Remember, I mentioned that today we're going to focus on official information, keeping theories to a minimum. Well, in the Persona 3 club books, Ikisuki explained to Aigis that back when Nyx arrived, most life forms on Earth were extremely basic organisms. Organisms like amoeba could grow continuously and indefinitely through cellular divisions and only die if eaten by another creature. In other words, there was no concept of death through a natural lifespan. However, after Nyx's arrival, there was an explosive burst in evolution, but with this rapid growth came the introduction of limited lifespan, or death as we know it. So Nyx isn't just the mother of night and death, she's also the mother of life. This is why I really like the idea of Nyx's core being linked to the concept of cosmic egg, and there's even more information that support this crazy idea. There's this one important item called Plumes of Dust. It was discovered by the Kirijo group before the events of Persona 3, and it is said to be the fragment that fell off Nyx's body during the moon creation. In the original Persona 3, if you play on the easy mode, the game would start you with 10 of these plumes. When used upon death, they would revive the protagonist and the entire party to full HP and SP, reflecting the life-giving power created by Nyx. However, it's worth noting that this mechanic was removed in the newer version of the game, including Persona 3 Reload, though the Plume of Dust still remains and exists as a key part of the lore. Additionally, the Plumes of Dust are the reason the Kirijo group was able to develop things like Misaru Bite, the Evokers, and other electronics that function during the dark hours. But perhaps the most significant role of the Plumes is that they give life to the anti-shadow suppression units, such as Aigis. In fact, Aigis and her sister units contain two Plumes of Dust positioned around upper middle part of their bodies. These two pieces, placed together, form the shape of hearts and are called a Papillon hearts. Speaking of Aigis, there are a lot to dive into regarding the development of the shadow suppression units and their connection to the Plumes of Dust. So if you're interested in learning more about Persona and other Atlas game lore, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon for more content like this in the future. Okay, I know everything I've told you so far sounds pretty wild, but here's the thing, we're just getting started. Now I'm going to tell you the truth about shadows and how it's all tied into information about Nyx I've shared. Again, much of this information isn't found anywhere inside the game itself. Do you remember when Ryoji told you that Nyx is the mother of all shadows? Well, it's turned out that it's not quite in the way that most people might think. Nyx didn't exactly give birth to shadows. They were actually part of her. Remember when I told you that Nyx's soul was separate from its body and spread across the earth as a wave of death powerful enough to wipe out all life? As you probably realize, this didn't happen. Otherwise, there wouldn't even be a Persona 3. So, what stopped this catastrophe? According to the Persona 3 club book, the creatures on Earth at that time cherished life so much that they managed to resist Nyx's influence. They did this by creating the collective unconsciousness and sealing part of Nyx's soul inside it. Yeah, I know. This is where even I myself start rolling my eyes too, but bear with me as we explore what the book has to say. If you're not familiar with the collective unconsciousness, it's where the protagonist and everyone ends up at the end of the game after defeating Nyx, and later as they revisit it during the encounters with Erebus. It's also referred to as the Sea of Soul. The concept of the collective unconsciousness is a bit scattered and vague throughout the games, but it's described as a place within all living beings that connect everything together. To put it simply, the life form on Earth at that time is still small fragments of Nyx within themselves, and those fragments are what we now know as shadows. Which brings us to the next topic. In Persona 3, it's explained that when a person's psyche is consumed by a shadow, they are left as an empty shell wandering aimlessly. This hollow being are referred to as the lost. The number of the lost increases as the full moon approaches, peaking just before Nyx's return at the end of the game. However, there are still many unanswered questions that the game doesn't fully address, such as what the strange voices are that people hear before being targeted by shadows.
That's right. Guess I'm alone after all. Fuka. No, I don't want to hear this. Calling me. I have to go to school. Tell her I'm sorry. Fuka.
Or what really happened when your psyche is consumed by one. So what does it actually mean to have your psyche eaten by a shadow? If you're imagining a shadow sitting down to enjoy some psyche flavored sushi inside of your mind, yeah, that's not quite it. As I mentioned earlier, all life forms now contain a shadow within them. This means that every living being carries a part of Nyx within their psyche. In the game plot, the goal of the 12 powerful shadow is to merge back together with death and become Nyx once again. This desire to reunite with Nyx is shared by all shadows. Shadows constantly seek out other shadows to merge with, which is what really happening when a shadow attacks someone. The shadow take away the fragments of shadow that reside within that person, and because that fragment is part of their psyche, it's as if part of their mind is torn away. This is why people are reduced to a zombie-like state, becoming the lost. And that's what it really means to be eaten by a shadow. Now, let's talk about the voices people hear as they are targeted by the shadow. As I mentioned earlier, every human has a shadow inside them, and that shadow ultimate goal is to return to Nyx. So the voices people hear aren't just from the shadow hunting them, it's also the voice of their own shadow, the fragment inside them longing to merge back into Nyx. That said, there are still much more to explore within the world of Persona, and if you like another good watch like this one, why not check out this video where I explain the meaning behind the symbolism in the Persona 3 Reload opening.